Okay, well, welcome guys, and it's great to have you all here, and hopefully, do you all like chocolate first of all? Oh, it doesn't really sound like you really like it. Do you really like chocolate? It's a bit more like it, brilliant. Well, I think the kitchen is one of the most, is a very, very hard and intense environment to actually work in and progress in as well. That's why so many chefs get out of it at sort of quite a young age. You only find sort of very few actually go on to go the distance. So it really does require a lot of time, a lot of commitment, which is a lot of what's been talked about today. So I also got to introduce you at the back there to Sarah. Can you just give a wave, Sarah? She's your other chocolatier for today. And Sarah's background, she was chief chocolatier at a company on the south coast called the Purbeck Chocolate Company, otherwise known as Chococo, and they supply Harrods, Selfridges, Harvey Nichols. So very, very high standard. My background is I've been a chef and a pastry chef, obviously training under my father, and also trained with Marco Pierre White, John Turode. I trained in a lovely hotel. I did my apprenticeship in a hotel in France, a 2-Michelin star restaurant in France as well, where I trained under a very, very good pastry chef called Susan Bansard, who actually iced the wedding cake for Princess Diana and Prince Charles as well. So we will be looking for top quality from your chocolates as well. And if they're not up to scratch, we will be asking you to do them again. So make sure they are very, very good. So we're going to be on a watch of eye. But one thing that's really important today as well is have fun, guys. Enjoy it. I think that's a key thing. Certainly those of you who'll be with myself and Sarah will have good fun. But I'm here to inspire you a little bit about chocolate, tell you a little bit about chocolate as well, and hopefully to sort of get the taste buds going as well. Now, just thinking about chocolate and how that's all changed over the last few years. You all shop in supermarkets. You've seen how, a few years ago, people asked me, what's a good chocolate to buy for the supermarket? And it was hard for me to sort of pick a good brand. But nowadays, you've just got a huge selection. All the single origin bars, even the supermarkets are getting on the bandwagon. They've got their own single origin bars as well, all fighting for that spot on the shelf. So that, it's a very, very tough market. Some companies even pay a premium rate to get on to a certain eye-level part of the shelf in a supermarket. It's a hugely, hugely competitive market. So your brand really has to stand out. What do you think makes a brand stand out more than anything? Or a few things? Colour, absolutely. So if I ask you to give me a colour associated with chocolate, what are you going to say? Purple, yeah. Why purple? Absolutely, yeah. Quality Streets. But like Cadbury's and those sorts of brands, they really, really do stand out because of colour. B&Q, you think of orange and all those popular brands out, so that's really, really important. Anyway, just going to the chocolate. So do you guys talk a little bit about chocolate, where it comes from, how it's made? Do you guys know where chocolate starts out? Where does it start its life? Cocoa pods. Sarah, do you just want to hand some cocoa pods around? What we've got here are some real cocoa pods. There's 3 main bean varieties we use in chocolate making. One's called the Criollo, one's called the Trinitario, and one's called the Forastero. The difference between the 3 is yield, how many beans you get per pod, and also quality. The Criollos are more aromatic and the one that's sort of sought over by the artisan chocolatiers. The Trinitario and Forastero are the more commonly used. Most chocolate that you eat or you find on the shelves are mixed bean varieties, so they come from different origins from around the world to create the perfect blend or the perfect flavour which each chocolatier or manufacturer is looking to get out of the chocolate. It's a very, very fussy plant. It only grows 30 degrees north or south of the equator. It's along something called the cocoa belt, and it grows under the rainforest. It needs the protection from the rainforest to protect it from the wind and rain. It's like a large sort of shrub that grows up underneath the canopy of the forest. And what you tend to find nowadays they do to create canapes because of deforestation is they actually plant banana trees because they sprout up very quick and they're able to create the cocoa plantations underneath the trees. Once it's been grown, it's then harvested. This is where they cut the pod down from the tree, which is being handed around now. They'll split the pod in half. There's a milky pulp that surrounds the beans. That has to go through a fermentation process. And the fermentation process actually tricks the bean into thinking it's the right conditions to grow. The starches and sugars come out in the bean. There's a lot of parallels between wine and chocolate. The processes are very, very similar. Also, depending on where you get your bean variety from, if you get the same bean variety grown in somewhere like Papua New Guinea, as to a bean variety grown in South America, you'll get a lot more different flavour notes. Papua New Guinea, a lot more smoky, a lot more earthy notes come through, whereas somewhere like South America, you get a lot more sort of floral notes coming through. Most of the chocolate we get, does anyone know where most of the chocolate, about 90% of the chocolate comes from in the world? Yeah. Madagascar, pretty close, yeah. Africa, about 90% of the chocolate or cocoa grown around the world comes from Africa. It's a huge business for them. So it has to go through several processes. So after it's been the beans have been fermented, perhaps Sarah, if you could pop on some plates some beans. Sarah's going to be bringing around some cocoa beans. You're quite willing if you want to taste some. Cocoa does grow on trees. However, you've got to bear in mind it is quite bitter on the palate. I really like it. It's a good alternative to nuts and things like that. These cocoa beans, they're mixed bean variety that are coming round. And they've been through the first processes of the process, which is fermentation, drying, which is the second process. So what they'll do is find, generally, a common practice is they'll find any level flat area they can. So tarmac's great because it's black, it heats up. So that's where your chocolate starts out on tarmac. And then it dries the beans out, and that's basically to preserve the bean because they'll spawn very, very quickly. They're then shipped off to the various factories around the world where they're then turned into a bar. First process they'll do when reaching the factory is they will roast the beans. Why do you think they'll roast the beans? Do the same with coffee. Spices, you ever make curries? Sorry? Sort of fermentation, yeah, that's one reason, yeah. Flavour, it's all about flavour. You roast the beans. If you ever made a curry or anything like that and you toast your spices dry in a pan first of all, have a whole new depth of flavour to your curry, or same with almonds, hazelnuts, things like that. If you toast your nuts, you just add a whole new depth of flavour. And the same with chocolate as well. So you roast the beans, so you're quite willing to taste these. And then it goes into a machine called a winnowing machine. What that will do is crack the shell. You can have a little go at simulating that yourself, and nibs come out at the bottom of the machine, and you've got that outer husk, which is discarded because that's grainy in the chocolate. Those nibs are then ground up into a thick paste, which is called cake, or another name for it is called liquor. And cocoa butter is extracted off at this point. It then goes into the mixing process, and this is where, if it's Cadbury's, you get your glass and a half in there. Difference between dark milk and white chocolate is dark chocolate is made up of the cocoa bean parts and sugar. So if you've got 60%, 70%, 80%, that other 10, 15, 20% is made up of sugar. If it's milk chocolate, generally it's around about 30%, 35%, and the rest of that content is made up of milk and also sugar, and sometimes palm oil, which is actually a very cheap way, depending on what you're going for today in regards to your brand. But palm oil, you obviously it's a lot cheaper chocolate if you buy that because it's not got the cocoa butter in it, and that's what a lot of cheap practices do. They add palm oil and cheap sugars and fats to bulk up the chocolate. So after it's mixed, it's then conched, and that was invented by a famous chocolatier called Randolph Lindt. I've known better, for Lindt chocolates, and he wasn't happy with the texture of chocolate. And if you try one of those beans, you'll probably find it's a little bit grainy on the palate. What the conching process does, it basically refines the chocolate into a smooth paste so it's nice and smooth on the palate. And then the final process is something called tempering. And I'm going to get Sarah, because I've talked for long enough, I'm going to get Sarah to come up, and we're just going to show you a little bit of technique. This is one of the skills that you guys have got to master today. Because it's not just about, those of you guys who come do the manufacturing side with us, it's not just about, completing the challenge. We'd like to impart a few skills to you today as well. And you guys all seen the Great British Bake Off? Yeah, you've probably seen a few people having a go at doing some chocolate tempering. Can go well, can go wrong. Obviously, we're going to be watching your chocolate tempering as well, and if the temper's not good, then that doesn't reflect on your brand as well. That's really, really important. We need to have that really good quality. Does anyone know why we temper chocolate? Why would we bother tempering chocolate? Sarah, if you could do a hand, I've got some chocolate over there as well. It's in a Kilner jar at the back there. It's untempered chocolate. Have you ever had a candy bar that's been left out in the sun, or you've had it? It's been in the parcel shelf on the glove box in your car. You got to winter, you've opened it, and it's all gone streaky and white. That's basically the fats that have come out of the chocolate, and it's just not been retempered. Michelle's just bringing around some temperature. Just hand the Kilner jar around and let them sort of have a look at it in there. That's untempered chocolate. It looks like it's gone off, but it hasn't gone off. It's just simply where the fats have come out. Because a little interesting fact about chocolate is it's got 5 different fat crystals. Cocoa butter is a white fat. That's hence why you've got the white streak in it, in the untempered chocolate. And those all have different melting and setting points. So you've got to calibrate those fats to the right temperature to get it to that temper stage. There are lots of different industries use. You've probably heard the term tempering. Tempered glass, that's to give glass its clarity. Tempered steel, that's to give steel flexibility and strength. What we use, it's just basically a heating and cooling process. So lots of different industries use the kind of tempering process. Sarah's just bringing up, I'm just conscious of time. How am I doing for time? Oh, should be quick. Sarah's an experienced chocolatier. If she can't do it in a couple of minutes, then we're in trouble. But an amazing fact about chocolate as well is it melts at 37 degrees. That's blood heat. Yet it's tempered at 30, and that's simply because you've managed to calibrate those fats in the chocolate to the right temperature. They will set very, very quickly. So when you're working with us, we will be taking you through this whole stage again. We'll give a bit more, Sarah and I'll give a little bit more of an in-depth demonstration on how to make your ganaches, how to temper the chocolate. We've got loads of different flavourings, and I think we've got a bit of a planning stage, so you're more than welcome to come through and have a browse, see some of the ingredients that are on offer. And I think a key thing about today, like in any kitchen, is communication, making sure that whole brand of yours ties together. You can have people all over the place. Like you guys all come from different departments, I know. Communication is an essential thing to make sure that your whole brand at the end comes together, because obviously when you're pitching to us, if that's not coming through, then obviously that's going to be picked up. So it's essential that you make sure that you've got the whole thing coming together. Right, so Sarah, do you want to, if I just, you got mic on. Okay, I'll just hand over to Sarah very quickly.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So tempering, as you've heard, is one of the most important parts of your chocolate process, probably the most technical part. But if you're heading for high-end quality chocolates, you have to get this right. If you don't get this right, no matter what you do with your flavours or any other finishes, this will actually pull your chocolates down in quality. So we need to take your chocolate through a temperature profile. So we've melted the chocolate. It's round about 40, 45 degrees. We need to take it down to 26 degrees and then heat it back up to 30 degrees. That way we then get the right crystallization, so you will then also get the right temper on your chocolates. Marble, granite or a marble will work. Tools of the trays, couple of spatulas, and a thermometer. So, first of all, you're going to actually pour about 2/3 of your chocolate onto the granite. And then you're going to keep it moving. Just take the initial temperature. And the reason...
Should we get a volunteer? Someone volunteer come up and help Sarah? Come on, guys. Come on. Round of applause. What's your name? Matt. Come on, Matt. Come up and give Sarah a hand. Come on, Matt, come up.
Okay, so what we do is just keep the chocolate moving. If we just leave it to poured it out and just left it, the bottom would set and the top would still be warm. So if you're quite happy just to move that round for a little bit. And we just keep taking the temperature until it comes down to 26.
So as we're actually moving this around on the granite, it's actually cooling the fats. And then we're going to mix that with slightly warmer chocolate, and that's going to bring it back up to temperature, which is 30 degrees.
Yeah.
Easy, isn't it, guys?
So you can now understand why we have plastic coated tables, and I put paper on the tablecloth here. Okay, this is thickening up nicely. So this will be down to about the right temperature. Yep. So we now need to lift that back into the bowl.
Look at that, it's done like an expert.
Yeah, keep going. All
Fantastic.
of it. So
now, as chocolate's cooled day, you're going to see, he's going to mix that slightly warmer chocolate. Initially, when you use a granite, first of all, these have been in the van overnight, so they're quite cold. So initially, when you first do your tempering, it will set off quite quick.
So we now have 2 temperatures of chocolate. So we just need to give it a good mix. And the 2 temperatures, once they combine, will bring it back up towards the 30-degree mark. Thank you very much.
Round of applause again for Matt. Thank you, Matt. Well done. Thank you. Okay, and thank you to Sarah as well. Round of applause for Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Just going to hand back over to Neil, but just before I do, every kitchen and every organisation functions from good leadership, okay? So you're obviously going to have to divide your teams, and in each team, it would be good to have a head chef. And how do you think you should address that chef? I think we need to have that. I'll count to 3, and we want to have a big yes chef, all right? So 1, 2, 3. Yes. That's more like it.